Little bit, exploring some of the webcams out there from Anarchista Firefly Village in Gatlinburg. Beautiful evening, a few folks out and about for a nice stroll. A little cooler higher up the mountains, and also seeing again some very mild conditions across much of the southeast U.S. The island in Pigeon Forge back toward the Ferris wheel. A lot of folks out and about on a beautiful last night of spring. Summer officially begins tomorrow at 4:25 or 4:52. I'll have to double check that in just a little bit, but we'll talk about that as well coming up here in just a little while. It's going to be getting much more on the hotter side. We're going to be looking at the potential for a very warm weekend coming up. Dangerously hot, let's just go ahead and call it what it is, because as of right now, temperatures are not totally terrible, but we should be seeing the potential for some more outdoor problems where it comes to heat. So if you have any plans for being outdoors, please keep it tuned to News 12. We'll keep you updated on what's going on. We also, again, have the potential for some showers and thunderstorms taking place next week, but not that much going on anytime soon. Also, another tropical, so the first one of the season, another one in a long string of seasons that starts off very quickly, and two more possibly following up after that. We'll talk about that coming up here. Excuse me. In just a little bit. Allergies are murder these days. All right, I'm Chief Meteorologist Austin Onek. This is Weather Overtime, and of course the topic du jour is going to be the heat and humidity across much of the area. If you're on Twitch, if you have any questions, drop your questions into the chat function. We'd love to be able to see what you're seeing out there, and if you have any questions about what's going on, we'd love to answer whatever questions you might have, but if we can't answer it in this session, we'll let you know more about that by dropping it into the comments section later. And likewise for YouTube, thanks to everybody, by the way, for all the new follows on the News 12 YouTube site and on my Twitch account. Nice to have everybody along for the ride. If you've never been here before, this is, again, our opportunity to talk more about weather. During a regular weathercast, you get 2, maybe 3 minutes worth of weather information. Here, we can go for as long as we want to. So for right now, if you got questions, go ahead and let us know. Let me just double check our audio, and that is good to go as well. So stay tuned for more, and we'll keep you updated on what is happening in and around the Tennessee River Valley. Where is that? We'll talk about that in just a little bit. For the Almanac page, this wasn't working last night. Almost as spot on normal as you could possibly get, within about a couple of degrees or so, so very close to where we should be. Record high for today, 99, set back in 1944. We have had no rainfall, at least very little, in the last couple of weeks, so we're behind for 1 inch and 2/3 for the month, and just about 2 inches or so for the entire year. So we are looking at some pretty dry conditions across much of the area yet again. It'd be nice to get some showers in here, but I don't think that's going to be happening until next week. Still a little bit of light left over. We're coming up on the shortest night of the year. Tomorrow, the solstice is the longest day with 14 and a half hours of daylight plus. And from here on out, we start to shrink as we head downwards as we go closer to the equinox. But tomorrow is the summer solstice. It's very warm out there now. We should drop down a few more degrees overnight, but otherwise not much. And again, decent amount of sunset light out there as seen from Lee Point on 153 and 64. Downtown Chattanooga, again, with a few clouds around the area and not seeing a great deal of anything in the way of major amounts of issues where it comes to anything in the way of light going on. Trying to see what's going on down here. It looks like a small amount of fireworks going off of some sort down toward around 20th Street. Not too sure exactly what is going on down there in downtown, but that's kind of unique to see for this evening. That's the Bailey's Heating and Air camera for you around the area of the Tomahawk Crane and Rigging camera. Very hazy, could barely see the lights of Signal Mountain off in the distance. From the Chattanooga Theater Center in downtown, also a beautiful night. Lots of folks out and about, and our autofocus is off. Sorry about the very fuzzy picture there, but beautiful conditions for the most part. It is, again, warm, temperatures in the 80s. That's where we're seeing, again, some uncomfortable conditions Erlanger Hospital, fading daylight back to the west, and a few fractured clouds out there, again with temperatures back into the lower 80s. Right before the top of the hour, temperatures are back into the 60s in North Carolina, lower 70s around Murphy, mid to upper 70s to lower 80s across much of the rest of the area, and that pretty much goes for the rest of the southeastern United States. So we are not picking up anything in the way of very hot weather yet, but I think that's going to be changing as we get into the rest of the forecast. So stay tuned for more on that. We are looking at, again, winds kind of out of the east-southeast at the surface coming in over the Appalachians and off the Gulf of Mexico. We've got our front, the latest one that could be giving us some nicer weather, stuck to the north. If you take a look way out, let me make certain I'm on both cameras here, all the way out into the Atlantic, a big area of high pressure that's helping to escort in a lot of this moisture down to the south and keeping us in the very warm and muggy conditions. This front, which is causing some showers and thunderstorms north of us, that'd be nice, but we're just not getting anything directly here. Down to the south, that moisture being pulled in by, again, Tropical Storm Alberto. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a little bit, so stay tuned for more on that. What we've got is, into the next couple of days, the almost exact same pattern shaping up. We've got very warm and muggy in the morning. We've got very hot conditions basically in the afternoon. Tomorrow especially starting off with less in the way of clouds, so more sunshine, so that bakes the lower levels of the atmosphere, and that keeps us warm into overnight. So low temperatures each morning, high 60s to mid 70s. High temperatures each afternoon from here on out, lower to mid 90s. And again, lather, rinse, repeat, and that's the way it's going to seem for the foreseeable future. Now, Saturday, some thunderstorm possibilities near us, but not that much going on at first. On Sunday, we start seeing more random areas of showers and thunderstorms possible, and that sticks around into next week. Now, we see another cold front back to our north. Whether or not that is able to make its way down this direction, again, that's going to be kind of iffy, but it looks like we will be picking up more chances of showers and thunderstorms, so we might see a little bit more in the way of rainfall coming up. Once again, reiterating that we do not have anything in the way of any heat advisories. This is where we get to that point. You see a lot of the orange counties up to our north and east around the Ohio River Valley, the Great Lakes, and back into New England. The orange is heat advisories. Those are issued when the National Weather Service expects heat index temperatures. And again, that's the temperature and the humidity to make that feels like index. Numbers here are expected to be 105 degrees plus heat index. So that is something that we could be seeing a lot of very steamy conditions, but notice the closest it gets to us is basically northern Kentucky and southwest West Virginia. So that, again, is as close as it gets to us. It's going to be warm, but it doesn't really seem like it's going to be doing too much in the way of really getting blisteringly hot temperatures in here, at least for now. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and take a look at our background. The Island Cove Marina and Resort camera. Should mention that, again, you can get any of our cameras on the EPB Fiber Optics WeatherCam network on WDEF.com/weather. So stop by for some more camera fix there if you'd like to see more about what's going on. Here's what it looks like, again, going into the next several days. We have the first day of summer starting up tomorrow. We have temperatures a little warmer there, again, just above normal, heading into the mid to high 90s, and then staying into the mid 90s as we go into the first part of National Lightning Safety Awareness Week, and the first full week of summer next week will definitely be feeling like it. Temperatures back in the mid to upper 90s, lower to mid 70s elsewhere. So not much relief coming up anytime soon. We're getting into the first week of summer, and that is definitely going to be feeling like it, no question about that. All right, taking a look down toward the tropics, we've got a couple of areas to take a look at. The first one is, again, Alberto. It is a tropical storm, winds right at 40 miles per hour. It's gotten a little bit more structure to it. It's heading toward the northeastern coast of Mexico, but it is also shoveling a lot of moisture up along the Texas Gulf Coast. It is also, this thing has a very long reach. The energy that this thing is putting out is sending waves across the Gulf, and a lot of anything from Corpus Christi to Houston, Galveston, all the way over toward the Louisiana coast. We've got a very good amount of surge and waves going on. It's not huge, but it is noticeable. We've got 3 to 6 foot waves down toward Mexico, and a little bit less than that, but still noticeable back into that area right around the northeastern portion of Alberto. Now that's going to be heading off to the northeast. Watching the southern part of the Bay of Campeche, right here is where we may see a second storm system forming in the lee or the wake of Alberto going up to the north. It's a possibility, but the chances right now, we're talking about 20% coverage at best. We're not looking at a 20% possibility of developing, much like the one that is sitting off into the Atlantic. It doesn't look like much right now, but the satellite picture again showing those clouds starting to come together in a little bit more of a wave format, a little bit more circular. So this right here could be the next system that affects the East Coast, Florida, and back into the area of the Carolinas. So if you're traveling anywhere north of Miami, all the way back up to Savannah and the outer banks of North Carolina, I would watch this with a lot of interest to see what goes on into and around this particular area. I'm going to stop this for just a second because this is kind of interesting. The key right here that you're looking at, well, it should be there. What you're looking at here, yellow is low probability, about 20-30% coverage chance. Orange, on the other hand, is a high probability, moderate probability, I should say, and we have that underneath Alberto as it makes its way to the north and west, and it looks like we may be picking up another one, again, developing here. But for right now, around the area of Florida and the southeastern coast of Georgia, that is where we could be picking up something else. But for right now, there's nothing organized, but we're going to watch this again with a lot of interest. We are now 19 days into hurricane season. We got a long way to go on this, so definitely something to watch out for there. Now, let me just double check this is working. All right, notice the moving lines on screen, the wind fields on the forecast road. We watch Alberto head back across the mountainous section of central Mexico. That's pretty much going to shred this system and not much of a threat after the next couple of days. We'll get rid of Alberto's track and then watch the area around the Bay of Campeche. Again, we start to see toward about Saturday morning a more organized swirl looking pretty good towards Saturday night right there and showing a high probability, very favorable potential and conditions of a new system developing and making its way into the western part of Mexico again, which means that if that low sits right there, that is going to stir up and move a lot of moisture back again right over the area where it just got pummeled on the Texas Gulf Coast. So we could be looking at another system coming our direction there. Now off to the west, it looks a little bit more potential problem for that one. It looks very unorganized. We start to see that area I was just talking about in the Atlantic, watching the wind fields moving around. That is where we see it move into the Georgia-Florida coastline by about Friday morning. So that is another system that could be a potential problem. And the other interesting thing, for a while, it looks like it starts heading right up very close to our area, Chattanooga at the top of the screen, and right here around Albany and Macon. We've got that particular swirl taking place through Saturday. So this will also help escort in more humidity. Probably not much in the way of showers or thunderstorms yet, but that is a possibility that we see that make its way close to us with that rotation, bringing in more moisture and heat, and then it looks like that system pretty much just washes out as it tries to head up the East Coast. So we've got not just Alberto at this point in time, we've got the possibility of even more developing south of Alberto and then out into the Atlantic. So this is something we are really going to have to watch in the next couple of days, especially if you're traveling down this direction. This could be a serious situation. Will this make hurricane strength? It doesn't look likely with less than 24 hours before landfall, but it does look like There's going to be a lot of rain and wind involved here, so we could be looking at some potential problems going on there. Now, interestingly enough, we do not have anything going on in the way of dust off the Sahara. We have a new plume out into the Atlantic making its way through by tonight, so one more puff of dust here will help to curb the possibility of anything involving more tropical activity. But here's the thing. With this going on, with more sunshine and less dust, it's a good possibility we could see more development here with that system I just mentioned. Now, over the next several days, watch this area back toward the Sahel and Western Africa as the Sahara continues to send poofs of dust, large tons of sand and dust over the mid-Atlantic, and that could help to again drop the level of the possibility of hurricanes coming up. So it's a good possibility we might see a curbing of the amount of energy. If some of that makes its way into the Caribbean, that also should be able to help us out at least a little bit by calming things down. And we need that because as of right now, again, the waters are primed to stoke the fires of any of those storms, so to speak. So that is something that we're going to be watching with a lot of interest into the course of the next couple of days. All right, so let's take a break from everything and talk about weather safety, particularly heat safety. And you may have seen us talking about this subject last night. If you haven't, please take a look at this. Our weather quiz of the day, sponsored by friendinroofing.com. Thank you very much for being our sponsor on that. If somebody is suffering from either heat stroke or heat exhaustion, either one, what should you not do? There are a lot of medical things you should be doing and some things you shouldn't be doing. So should you not get them into a cooler area, not spray them with spray or sponge them with cool water, soak them in ice water, or loosen tight or heavy clothing? And everybody, the entire answer, Kay and Andrew also picked this up. You do not soak them, and you don't douse them with ice water. You don't soak them in ice water. Cool water, loosen clothing, and shade or air conditioning, yes, absolutely. But soaking them in an ice bath, that's too much cold from the out and too much heat from the inside. When you do that to the outside of your skin, you cause the skin tissues to shrink and contract, and the body needs to get rid of that heat. Yes, it'll cool them off in the very, very, very short term, but it could induce what is called thermal shock, and that can be fatal. So cool water, shade and air conditioning, loosen the clothing so that you can let the heat get away, especially from the core of the body. That is imperative. Dropping them in an ice bath, never a good idea. So thank you very much, Friend in Roofing, for being our weather poll of the day. We'll have more coming up a little bit later on this week. New poll drops at midnight. We'll also have more about the heat map coming up here in just a little while. This Sunday begins National Lightning Safety Awareness Week, so find out more. We'll have more quizzes and more information about lightning from NOAA and the National Lightning Safety Council, so stay tuned for more on that. This Saturday and Sunday is the day of days for amateur radio operators. It's a contest. It's called Field Day, to where most of the clubs and individuals contact other clubs and individuals, and in that amount of time, whether it's voice, whether it's Morse code, whether it's on digital, there are many different formats for amateur radio these days. On Field Day, it's a opportunity to get more widespread coverage of amateur radio, and it's your opportunity to get involved in a great hobby. Yes, I am an amateur radio operator. Yes, I love the hobby, and yes, I think more people should get involved in it. I've heard a lot of people say that we don't need amateur radio because we've got technology like this. Well, if some big disaster happens, a hurricane, an earthquake, a major severe weather disaster, God forbid, another terrorist attack of some type, you may not be able to pick up the phone and order a pizza when you think. And that's why amateur radio is important, because it's more than just a catchphrase. When all else fails, amateur radio works. If you'd like to find out more, American Radio Relay League, to find out more about what's going on at ARRL.org. And the neat thing is, for Field Day, they have a section where you can go and plug in your zip code. In this case, I'm focused in on the Chattanooga News 12 viewing area, and right around this area, We've got into and around North Georgia, northeastern Alabama, and southeast Tennessee. We've got 7 area clubs that are going to be holding field day events. So if you'd like to visit one of these locations and find out more, again, go to the American Radio Relay League and find out more about where exactly the setting up is going to be. You may be driving around Saturday and Sunday, and you may see a bunch of tents. You may see trailers and antenna around public parks, shelters, things like that. Stop by, ask more questions of what is going on with amateur radio. It's a great opportunity to find out more about a hobby. It's a great hobby to get your kids involved in. I've seen amateur radio operators as young as 7 or 8 years old. You do not need to know Morse code. You can, that's great, but you don't have to know it for your license, and testing for the license with the FCC only costs about $15. So some great news there on that. Now, if you would like to, and tonight is kind of the last night to take advantage of this bargain, so to speak, the Cleveland, Tennessee Amateur Radio Club will be holding a free 1-hour tutorial regarding amateur radio this Saturday right before field day kicks off at 2 p.m. Eastern. If you would like to drop by and learn more about amateur radio, great. Sign up. They would appreciate knowing how many people are coming, both in the idea that they want to know how many people will attend for the space, naturally, but then also there's going to be a small luncheon served afterwards, and so they'd like to know how many people to prepare for. So if you could please RSVP to carc.cc, Cleveland Amateur Radio Club.cc, and again, RSVP no later than tonight, Wednesday, June 19th. And you too could get your license thanks to them and get on the air and find out what the hobby is all about. So please check it out and find out more about what is going on with amateur radio. This is a great weekend to find out more about all of that. Thanks to News 12 viewer Daniel Swaggerty for a beautiful view of what he calls a wind-blown sunset over the Windstone area. I'm not familiar with that, but a beautiful view nonetheless. And if you've got pictures to share, you know where to send them to. Email. You can drop them to our social media pages, or you can go to wdef.com/photos. I think that should do it for tonight. Going to try to conserve my voice a little bit, so we'll go ahead and sign off for now. Again, please keep an eye on the tropics. Please keep an eye on what is going on with temperatures into and around the area, and we'll keep you advised as to what is happening. Questions, concerns, ideas about anything, contact me. My email address at the bottom of the screen, aonic@wdef.com. And if you want to check out any of our graphics, severe weather information, anybody else in the News 12 Weather Department, go to WDEF at the bottom of your screen, wdef.com/weather. I'd be glad to forward your information on to anybody else, but tons of information available, news, weather, sports, community events, all able to take a look at what's going on there, again, at WDEF.com. I'm Chief Meteorologist Austin Onig. This has been the Peak of the Week Wednesday edition of News 12 WDEF weatherblog Weather Overtime from downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'll have more tonight on News 12 at 11. Chip Chapman's got your forecast bright and early tomorrow morning. Stay tuned for more details with News 12 on air and online. And again, thanks for joining us for Wednesday, June 19th.